Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomena, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to another edition of the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you would like to check out all the programming we have available for you 24/7, 365 on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit www.xzbn.net. And for the X-Zone TV channel, channel 21 on Simul TV, www.simultv.com. My guest this hour, X-Zone Nation, is Christopher Fulton, and he's written a very intriguing book entitled The Inheritance, Poison Fruit of JFK's Assassination. And let me tell you a little bit about Christopher. Well, he came forward, first of all, for the first time to give the country and world answers. Chris had possession of the closest physical evidence to President Kennedy's fatal headshot wounds and was the first person since Robert F. Kennedy to listen to JFK's secret Oval Office recordings. Now, in his unprecedented book, The Inheritance, Poison Fruit of JFK's Assassination, that was co-authored by his wife, Michelle, he has unlocked some of the mysteries that have haunted our nation for the last 55 years. Although this is Christopher Fulton's story, it is really about all of us. Joining me now is Christopher Fulton. And Christopher, welcome to the X-Zone.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate having me on.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in the inheritance, so to speak.
Well, I'm a U.S. Citizen as well as a Canadian citizen, so I'm happy to be coming out in Canada. That makes me very pleased. But basically, I had come into a large amount of materials that come out of the White House that was taken and removed by Robert Kennedy following the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Mm-hmm. And these materials were evidence that was not put through the process of classification, nor was it put through the process of these Warren Commission and the House Select Committee on Assassinations, or even the Assassination Record Review Board, which we fell under, but so they tried to interrogate us, and which I subsequently went to prison over. But these materials were willed to one of my close friends in Maryland from Evelyn Lincoln, which was President Kennedy's personal secretary for 12 years. And these materials were utilized by Robert Kennedy to get a handle on what had happened to his brother and to keep us, the United States, out of war with Russia. We go covertly to the Russian government on a back channel and let them know that he was aware that it was a domestic coup. And it was put into application for the change of power in the United States, and that Russia would not be held accountable for that.
You say you went to prison. What did you go to prison for?
The actual charges were for evasion of U.S. reporting, tax reporting requirements. I was in British Columbia at the time, building high-rise towers. But the real interesting part of it was the Justice Department was interested in debriefing me. It took about a year of maximum security jail time and flying all over the country in what they call a Con Air situation before they broke me and they threatened my family to go ahead and debrief me without counsel, without constitutional abilities, in a private session and interrogation over these materials, and wanted to know if Russia was involved, if I was working with Russia, if President Reagan, how deeply he was involved, if JFK Jr. was, what was his intention of acquiring the evidence in his father's assassination, and so forth and so on. So I was facing 50 years of imprisonment and had to go in and tell the Justice Department everything I knew. And then, of course, the FBI backed that up and investigated all of that. And that's what I went to prison for.
How long were you in prison for?
The entire time that I was arrested, by the time I was let out, was 9 years.
Wow. So tell me, Chris, why did you write this book now?
I wrote the book. I had refused to hand over the recordings, the overlost recordings that President Kennedy had made in secret in 62 and 63. The CIA wanted those brought into the Fourth Circuit Federal Court and classified. I refused to turn them over and said, no, I'm not going to do that. And there was a fighting. It took quite a while, but I finally got in and was interrogated by the Justice Department and the intelligence communities over this. And I had my hope was, even though I appeared in the National Archives in the investigation through the Assassination Records Review Board on this under President Clinton, my hope was that this information would get out to the American public and would come out, that they would have an understanding of what had happened and what took place. Unfortunately, the majority of those files on myself and Robert White have gone missing, and they are not there. After a 30-day investigation, they said, yes, we're aware that they exist. That file folders are supposed to be here. They've been pulled, and we have no pull slip. We don't know where they went. So after that had happened, I felt that I owed the people that perished along the way, including my mother, who was interrogated in this and who had a massive stroke, and JFK Jr., who had purchased the evidence, close physical evidence in the assassination of his father from me, and other people that had perished in this, that it was my responsibility to the American public and to the world to discuss it.
Why would the CIA have anything to do with questioning you, since they have no jurisdiction in the United States?
The CIA did not question me directly. Their involvement was to direct the recordings that I had be placed into the custody of the Fourth Circuit Federal Court, so that they could determine and review those recordings for national security purpose. Robert White and myself were declared to have national security information on March 3rd, 1998, which came from the Assassination Records Review Board to the Information Security Oversight Office. And when that took place, you had two private citizens that were in possession of materials that contradicted the Warren Commission and contradicted the official government report. These items, the materials, were not classified or not reviewed. The CIA wasn't even aware of what we had. They knew that these materials transferred. They didn't know what we had, including the Kennedy family, who I was in contact with in '96 and again in '98.
Your book, The Inheritance, Poison Fruit of JFK Assassination. Why is this book so different than any other book that has been written to date?
Well, the majority of the reason why it's different is I'm not a researcher. I really didn't want anything to do with this. I'd come into these materials somewhat innocently through the fact that my friend had contacted me as someone who was interested in the same kind of a history of the United States. We've grown up in the same area. We knew each other. And I'd gone in, and there was a vast amount of materials. I mean, we're talking thousands of documents and personal correspondence and memorandums, government memorandums, and so forth and so on. So I had to go in there and help sort this out. Now, we decided that this needed to be shared with the American public and came up with the idea of writing a book and putting that out. And also he was going to put out a museum. And we knew we had to step lightly on this because President Reagan had contacted him and contacted me through him and said that we would be pulled in for this if we had materials that Robert Kennedy had squirreled away and secretly kept away from these commissions. That we would be pulled in to be investigated about this, and these materials would be classified, and we'd have to watch our steps. So the idea was to kind of put this out slowly so that we could get our feet wet with the American press. And then, of course, Donald Trump was helping us in that position in 1997.
Is the president still helping you now in the year 2019?
I have not been in contact with him since that time, and I don't know what his position would be on this. I know that he had made an attempt to release what he could through the National Archives and late last year and beginning of this year, but at the 11th hour that he was not successful, that the FBI and CIA had come in and told him that he could not be totally inclusive in releasing all this information to the American public, even though that's the orders to do so. But he was not successful into doing that.
What type of new information will readers learn in your new book?
Well, they'll learn that what from an insider perspective of what I went through from initially finding out what information was hidden from the American public, what was there, the fact that President Kennedy in his recordings and his brother was there to protect his back, but he was in a great infighting with the Pentagon and the intelligence communities, trying to divert their consensus on how to handle the nation, where we're going as the United States following World War II, and these weapons of great mass destruction. It was increasing every year in capability. And President Kennedy had made a promise to Eisenhower and talked to him and said, keep us out of World War III, do whatever we can. President Kennedy made it his personal responsibility and made a conscious decision to break with the CIA and to keep us out of war with Russia, whether with limited exchange or not. That this was just not acceptable. That even on a first strike, 42 million American civilians killed. That this was not going to happen on his watch, and wasn't going to happen on Robert Kennedy's watch. And both of these men paid the price with their lives.
All right, stand by, Chris. You and I have to take our first break. Exonation. Christopher Fulton is our guest. He is the author of The Inheritance, Poison Fruit of JFK's Assassination. The website is cmfulton.com. We'll be back after this commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. I'm Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
It's hard to listen to the news without realizing we're living in volatile, unprecedented times. Yet never has there been such an opportunity to transform the human condition. As old structures fail, where can we find the guidance to co-create a better way? Find Your Path Home is an ever-evolving, leading-edge information, education, and healing resource center designed to support and guide you on your path to unity and enlightenment. Based on sound principles employed by shaman worldwide, we provide techniques that can support you through the current transitions, offering online shamanic classes, international long-distance shamanic healing sessions, complimentary Mission Evolution radio episodes and Stairway to Heaven TV vignettes, seminars, retreats, and much more. All of this can be found on findyourpathhome.com.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me. simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Assassination. Christopher Fulton is our guest. He is the author of The Inheritance, Poisoned Fruit of JFK's Assassination. His website is cmfulton.com. Chris, how does your book differ from the Warren Commission, the official report into the assassination?
Well, the official report was there for a purpose. Robert Kennedy had told Evan Lincoln, which was President Kennedy's secretary, right after the assassination, that my brother had died in his efforts to prevent World War III, and the American people and the world would not be let to know all of the facts of this, but we'd have to keep this quiet for now to save the people from a nuke exchange and to save American lives, and so that sort of premise was taken even by Robert Kennedy, and the Warren Commission was a fabrication. It was some information was correct, obviously, but it was put out for a purpose. President Reagan had told us that it was there to be a distraction for the American public so that they could move forward, just like the Assassination Records Review Board was under President Clinton. I mean, there was a subpoena issued for testimony for Robert White. That subpoena also covered me. That was issued by Mr. Frank Hunger in January 9, 1998 from the U.S. Department of Justice, that we were supposed to testify and give information to the Assassination Records Review Board. Well, Robert White had to sign agreements with the Justice Department, with the Kennedy family, had to turn information over to the FBI and continue to turn information over to the FBI for classification. Even after his death, as he was trying to hold on to this material, following his passing, the FBI came in and pulled more information and classified. And, of course, my material was such that it would change the Warren Commission official story to the point where they wouldn't allow me to testify. And so they issued a sealed warrant indictment. They would not share this information with the Canadian government. All they did was let the Canadian government know that I was a person of interest, and I was wanted on the fact of a tax situation in the United States. So they pulled me down under that guise, would not share this information with anybody. Of course, what they wanted to know was the information that we had come into possession of and what the purpose of it was, because that would change the official story.
How long after the Russian-Cuba crisis or the Russian missile crisis was President Kennedy assassinated?
Well, I mean, that was, there was the crisis in 61, 62, and then he was assassinated in 63. But I can tell you within 9 days of that assassination in Dallas, there was a plan in effect by President Kennedy and his brother to effect a change in Cuba. And Cuba would have been resolved, and of course any exchange with Russia would have been nullified, and that would have been a situation that would have changed the world history. The last thing that President Kennedy wrote aboard Air Force One coming into Love Field was "Government reform. We are going forward." Now, that was a coded message put on a stationery in Air Force One to give at a trademark speech. It'd be included to that. It was a coded message to go to Khrushchev, to let him know the intention of the U.S. government and how we were going to make drastic changes in Cuba and in the world.
Who assassinated President Kennedy, based on the information you have?
President Kennedy, there was a false flag operation that was in existence that was put into place to force President Kennedy, to shoot at President Kennedy, to force the American public to comply with his taking an invasion force, a U.S. Invasion force into Cuba. And President Kennedy was aware of this, and his brother was aware of this. And they had circumvented that on two different occasions. In Dallas, they were told information that this was called off, that there was not going to be a shot fired at him in Dallas. They believed the information was good, and unfortunately, that scenario was changed.
Mm-hmm.
And President Johnson was aware of that situation and was briefed, and the shots were fired for purpose. The shot that hit him in the front temple was an exploding military munition round, and it was a guarantee to make sure the president would not return back to Washington.
So was President Johnson complicit in the assassination?
President Johnson is complicit and was complicit in the assassination of the 35th President of the United States.
How did he get away with it?
Well, I mean, he was a very crooked man and politician, and when he took power, and the only person that could have stopped him was Robert Kennedy. Robert Kennedy was pinned down. Robert Kennedy could not really discuss the matter openly with the American people. He was there was information coming in from Lee Harvey Oswald on the two coded numbers that I had seen, was aware of, that was coming into the Justice Department for information, and Lee Harvey Oswald was being utilized for purpose. One of those purposes was to get him close to Castro. So information was planted about him. A lot of people study Lee Harvey Oswald, but they were looking at information that was actually planted by the intelligence services for purpose. So it looks as though that he was a crazy nut and involved in all these different things, which, of course, he was involved with a lot of factions, but he wasn't a crazy nut. And the fact of the matter is that if Robert Kennedy had shared this information immediately with the public and the world, which the Russians, by the way, when they briefed me about this in the Kremlin, said that they felt that he should have done that. He should have effected a coup against the Johnson administration immediately. But Robert Kennedy was aware that the Johnson administration and the FBI under Hoover would have showed that the evidence pointed to Cuba and the evidence pointed to Russia. And therefore, we could have very easily taken this to a confrontation. We would have had a problem with an exchange with Russia. And Russia was very prepared for that. They were on high alert and ready for a missile exchange immediately following President Kennedy's assassination. It was a very touchy situation, and it was very critical. So Robert Kennedy, in my opinion, did the only thing he could do, and that was to follow course and to keep his power as much as he could, make agreements to keep his power in such a way that he could facilitate a change and a course correction in 1968. Of course, he did not get a chance to do that and was assassinated himself.
Was Lee Harvey Oswald the shooter?
Lee Harvey Oswald did not fire a weapon that day. His information in history is wrong, but this is going to take a lot of, I think it's going to take some time before the American public and the rest of the world can assimilate this. As a matter of fact, I think the rest of the world has a healthier idea of what this is all about than the American public does. The American public has been brainwashed on this for so long that they have a very steadfast idea of what our history is, and I can tell you, from listening to it firsthand, non-redacted, the history's wrong. And we need to course correct this. And, of course, there's been a lot of positive effect on this book for me. I've had people from the State Department call me, federal judges, people from the CIA, very encouraging on this. But at the same time, there are factions here that are desperately trying to stop the book from coming out. And, of course, the mainstream media doesn't really want to touch it either because they're scared of it. Robert Kennedy's son was aware of this book. The gentleman that wrote the foreword on this book knows Robert Kennedy Jr. quite well and asked him about what he wanted to say about this. And he said, let me think on it. Within 60 days, he did make a statement on his Facebook page, which did corroborate the fact that there is overwhelming evidence now and that these intelligence military and industrial people were involved in the killing of his family. I mean, he's made a very bold statement. I think there's some divisions in the Kennedy family about this, but Robert Kennedy's son has made a very bold statement about it.
All right, Chris, if we have all this information now, the truth about the assassination of President Kennedy, who was responsible, who pulled the trigger, the reasons behind it. How come nobody has faced the judicial system yet? How come this wasn't exploded?
Well, this has been explained to me at the Department of Justice when I was being put through their procedures, which I might say have not changed in any way to this date in the United States. They're getting worse. The Department of Justice and the FBI and the CIA are being utilized for political purpose, and it's beginning further and further down that path. But that's another story for another day. But the Justice Department is solely responsible for this whole issue, and they have been directed in order to do nothing. There's been no prosecutions on this case. The only thing that they are to do is to confiscate evidence and bring it under one fold and then classify it if it needs to be classified for national security. Now, you have to ask yourself, why in the world are we classifying this information 55 years later for national security purpose? You have to shake your head and ask yourself, what are the reasonings for this?
Well, it's very simple. So the public it doesn't get out to the public.
That's exactly right. And the official story is going to stay the official story. And of course, the mainstream media is on the payroll of the CIA and others.
Listen, have you sent a copy? Have you sent a copy of your book to President Trump?
I have someone who is in contact with the White House about that as we speak, but I have not personally done that. No.
What do you think he's going to do about it? He seems to be a straight-up guy.
I don't know what his reaction will be. I think that there is obviously to the world, there is an open political coup happening right now in the United States. You have the country very divided on this issue,
big time,
and there's a lot of misinformation for purpose, which is a psyop, which is what the CIA has developed over years to give a false indication of what's really real and what's true, and give people a solid ground to work from. So you have to use a lot of due diligence to really cut through that and to get clarity. There's a very intelligent man that worked for the CIA that's really talking about a lot of this. His name's Kevin Schiff. I could highly recommend him if you want to go to someone like that and listen to what's going on right now. But the American public is going to have to make a conscious change in the way that they're perceiving their government and their history, and they're going to have to wake up to the realities of where we are and where we come from and why we're here.
Chris, stand by. We've got to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. XZRS Chris Fulton is our guest, and he is the author of a riveting book, The Inheritance, Poison Fruit of JFK's Assassination, and we'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. For more information about Chris and how you can get a copy of his book, visit his website, cmfulton.com.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Ellie Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, They conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Assassination. Chris Fulton is my guest, and he's the author of a riveting, that's the best word I can use, riveting, explosive, history-changing book entitled The Inheritance, Poison Fruit of JFK's Assassination. His website is cmfulton.com. First of all, Chris, thanks very much for coming on the show. Great having you with us. And I have to ask you a question. If Bobby Kennedy and President Kennedy knew that the plans were set in motion to have him taken out, as the President of the United States, could he have not found out who was doing this and taken action to prevent his assassination and to secure the future of a truly democratic and free United States?
He was doing his very best and utmost to try to do exactly that. Mm-hmm. But the factions of these rogue people in the CIA had been chased down by a man named John McCone, who they replaced. They replaced Alan Dulles. Alan Dulles was one of the gentlemen who had these world plans for the United States and the world, did not care about the sitting president of the United States, thought it was much more important than that. And Alan Dulles was fired by the president of the United States for purpose. He'd been lied to by Alan Dulles, made to look foolish by Alan Dulles. And Alan Dulles continued to operate the CIA out of Georgetown in Maryland. But John McCone was trying to do his best to get a handle on the CIA for not only President Kennedy, but Robert F. Kennedy. And I've heard the recordings by John McCone trying to convince President Kennedy that he was in control, which he did not sound to me that he was in control. And towards the end, the president had discussed with his brother that John McCone had actually reverted back to the interests of the CIA and against the brother's interests. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, wasn't one of the plans that President Kennedy had was to basically disband the CIA?
His idea was to break off the head of the snake of the CIA and then to get rid of the rogue elements, and if necessary, if the CIA would not capitulate to his orders, which they had circumvented many times, that he would disband the CIA and destroy it completely. I've heard the recordings were in 1964. He mentioned that he was going to be the least popular president in U.S. history with his own government. He certainly was making severe changes and taking a severe position. He also would have been pulling out all the U.S. personnel, including the CIA personnel, out of Vietnam. Now, that was a very major thing to do because the large amounts of money were going to be transferred in that conflict. That was a planned 10-year war out of the Pentagon. And that was a planned situation from day one.
It was all about the
operations. Yeah, there was operations operating rogue with the CIA, going in there with death squads, kill squads, taking out women and children and families as they showed up and shooting them in the head. I mean, this was a severe problem. I've met with the third person in power that was after Diem and New's assassination. He was whisked away to Paris. I've had dinner with him, and I recently made an apology to my personal apology to the the American soldiers that lost their lives in Vietnam and to the population of Vietnam that was slaughtered. 3 million people, 2 million of those people civilians, because I've listened to the recordings, and I can tell you there would not have been a Vietnam War. If President Kennedy had survived, there would be no Vietnam War. And all those individuals would have survived. So I took it upon myself to just to personally apologize for that and make that public.
Well, it seems that the real reason for the Vietnam War was to feed the industrial complex and to make sure that certain people were going to come out of the actual war effort very, very, very rich.
Lyndon Johnson was a big part of that. So was his wife, and so was a lot of other people that he had done business with. That whole military industrial complex and contracts that came out of Texas, and it changed the power structure of the United States totally. And also, it was there not only to do that, but to basically show the Russians that our resolve was going to be ruthless. That we could go in there as Americans and kill women and children, and show them that we can do this, and we did not necessarily need to go to an exchange with the Soviet Union. But the reasons for all that President Kennedy had stated were insane. They were not logical. They were not moral. They were not correct as to the Constitution, nor correct to how the American people should be following a course, and had made the decisions to nullify that and many other programs and many other things, including a first strike on Moscow, which he absolutely turned away in disgust. He said that Allen Dulles and General Curtis LeMay were insane lunatics, and these people were insane and with power and drunk with it. And these were his words, not mine.
Let me ask you, speaking about Moscow, how did you end up in the Kremlin talking to the head of Russian intelligence?
That's very interesting and strange, even for me. I was building high-rise towers in Vancouver, Canada, and there was a gentleman that I was working with there. It was a Russian individual that had run for the Duma, which is like the U.S. Senate in Moscow.
Yeah.
So he'd asked me to come over there to affect some U.S. specs for the flats in Moscow, to have people come in for oil production. These people come in, they have the flats that are very nice and luxurious, and they come in and then they do business in Russia with the oil production. So I was over there doing that. I was VIP, and I thought that was very nice. I said, well, as an American contractor, a Canadian contractor, I thought they would just VIPing me, but I wound up with a meeting in the Kremlin with someone that was a friend with this gentleman that had ran for the Duma. So this person turned out to be General Alexander Levin. I didn't know who this person was, but he was the general of their military and the head of their intelligence, and someone who was running for the presidency of Russia. And he was aware that myself and my friend had inherited these non-secured Kennedy materials out of the White House. And he was very interested in that, wanted us to be briefed on their side, the Russian side of it, and then he wanted to offer both of us to release this information from the Russia without being censored, so that they could do a good turn for the American public and maybe use it for a good PR situation. But at the time, I just thanked him for the meeting and kind of bowed out, and they didn't make any threats to me, and I left Russia immediately after that. I was glad to leave.
I'm just thumbing through your book as we talk. It's over 500 pages, a lot of interesting information in there. Because of this book, because of the publishing of this book, because of getting into the media, because of discussing it on air, because of getting this book into the hands of the American public, is your safety at risk?
Well, of course, my safety is at risk, and so is everyone's safety at risk. I mean, I feel for every family out there, or people who have children. I mean, all of us have to be concerned about the decisions that are being made, and in a world with these weapons of mass destruction, and the fact that we're all being utilized as pawns. I've seen some of the information from the CIA that takes acceptable losses in numbers to American cities, depending on what they feel is acceptable. No loss of American life is acceptable. No loss of life is acceptable at all, and it better be damn well justified.
I understand that, Chris. I understand the significance of what the big picture is. But I'm talking about Chris Fulton here. Because of the information you're releasing, because of the information you're getting into the hands of the U.S. citizens and saying, hey, listen, you've been lied to, you've been duped. Is this book putting you at personal risk by members of the intelligence agency, whether they're rogue or not?
It's possible. The a lot of the materials that Robert White and myself were in physical possession of, now these are materials that would be concerned if we went through a federal court process, which is what they were concerned about. They don't care if you've got an atomic weapon in your house, to tell you the truth. They only care what happens if it goes through a federal court process or changes the way that these people have for being void of prosecution. If you have something where an actual process can take place or something could be filed in federal court, then of course that can change the position, and that is taken very seriously. But other than that, the people who are in power are so entrenched. These materials that we had have been now resecured. The evidence that I had have been transferred through the Kennedy family and now are in possession of Caroline Kennedy. These materials are now resecured. So as far as they're concerned, I don't see that they feel too much of a threat from someone like myself, whether I'm talking this up or not, because what am I going to do? But what I'm doing is trying to help educate the American public and the world to the truth. And the more than that can happen, and people get educated to the reality of things, I think the better off it will be, because when you shed light on this darkness or on this wicked type of operations in the world, it becomes much more difficult for them to hide, becomes much more difficult for them to affect these processes if somebody stands up and speaks out about it and the light gets shown on it. So that's what I'm here to do. That's what I'm doing.
55 years later. Is there going to be any changes made? Yeah.
It was a catalyst of an assassination of a sitting president, and that was done for purpose, because now you have every president after that that's intimidated by the fact that if you get out of hand or if you don't follow the objectives of what's in play, that you are replaceable very quickly, whether it be you, your family, or whatever else. And these people that have so much money, they can either buy you or they can threaten your family. And I've experienced all of this, and I've experienced the corruption on the inside of the Justice Department, and I can tell you it's god-awful.
Let's talk about that when we come back from this final break, Chris. Exonation, our guest this hour is Christopher Fulton. He is the author of The Inheritance, Poison Fruit of JFK's Assassination, and his website is www.cmfulton.com. And we'll both be back on the other side of this short break as we wrap up this hour here in the X-Zone, right here from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Once again, if you'd like to find out about the programming we have available for you 24/7, 365 on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit www.xzbn.net. And don't forget, the X-Chronicles newspaper is always with our compliments. 92 full-page newspaper in color. You can download it digitally, read it online, or buy a print copy. www.xchroniclesnewspaper.com.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Ellie Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
So I was watching the X-Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me.
SIMULTV.com, sonny boy.
SIMULTV.com.
SIMULTV.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
SIMULTV.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. SIMULTV.com.
Chris Fulton is our guest. He's the author of, how can I best describe this book? First of all, it is earth-shaking, it's explosive, history-changing. It's a book that everyone in the United States should read, as well as everyone in Canada and the rest of the world, to find out what the truth of the entire assassination is. The name of the book is The Inheritance, Poison Fruit of JFK's Assassination. His website is cmfulton.com. First of all, Chris, I want to thank you ever so much for joining us tonight here on the X Zone, and I admire your courage. And as you and I were discussing during the break, you're the last person when it comes to this story that is still alive.
I am. I think about that an awful lot, and of course, I felt very positive in 1998 when meeting with having connect with JFK Jr., President Kennedy's son, who was very, very much interested in getting this evidence transferred and information transferred to him, and was very interested in discussing this with the American public through George Magazine. And I felt very good that we may have some change in this narrative and some healing in this country about this matter. And I think we would have gone in a very different course correction. I was doing federal prison time when I heard that he had died on the plane, and I think that we would have maybe averted some of the terrible things that have happened since his passing. And I feel very strongly about that. Of course, my mother passed away directly in a result of this. She was subpoenaed and threatened and had a massive stroke. Robert
God
White has died over this. My lawyer died over this. And I'm the last kind of person in line to discuss it. So I felt very obligated to the American people and to the world to share this part of the narrative that is just so unknown. And it would continue to be unknown if nobody said anything about it.
Chris, what was it like being in possession of hidden history from the White House, and then to be prosecuted so viciously by your very own government because of it?
Well, I thought at the beginning naively that I was going to do a good thing, that we were on a track of a good thing to help the country and to heal it. And I thought that this was a positive step. And then I realized what a terrible misstep that we had all taken when the Justice Department laid into me about who the hell was I to make these decisions. It wasn't that wasn't up to me. That was up to the Oversight Security Office for Intelligence and Classification and people that were members of government with security clearances and all these types of things. That it was not up to me. And of course, if not me, who? Because all this material has been classified away or destroyed at this point, and so the American public does not know this information, and it continued to be denied this information, regardless of what they think by these committees. These committees are not there to help bring the information in; they're help to bring information in and classify it away. I mean, I met Pierre Trudeau and Justin Trudeau up in Quebec, Tremblant, many years ago, and I know that Justin had made a speech to the Canadian people about reparations and an apology on behalf of the Canadian government for targeting individuals, and he had reparations and was going to overturn sentences and so forth. I can only pray that something like that, we would have the strength in the United States to do something like that, to actually have someone who represents this government to stand up and say, we've been wrong, we've lied, we've made a lot of mistakes, and we need to correct this and move forward for the American people, because that's what we're here for. We're not here to perpetuate ourselves, but we're here for a better world and for a better United States and for the people of the United States. And if that could happen, I think that the whole world would be a much better feeling about the whole thing and a much better place to be. This this assassination is a catalyst. It's a huge catalyst to go in the wrong direction for so long, and where we are right now, and what's happening in the world, and the divisions that we have, and the misappropriation of theft of large amounts of money, and the misappropriation, the use of the Justice Department. All of this is a direct correlation of the Kennedy assassination, and it has to start somewhere. You have to say, where do we go wrong and where do we start?
That's why I can't understand why somebody hasn't hand-delivered a copy of your book to the President of the United States, because he goes on air all the time and he tells people how he wants to drain the swamp.
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Let me answer that, Rob. If you go and say, okay, well, we're going to prosecute this individual. This individual is dirty and they've lied, so let's prosecute this person who's public and powerful in the United States. So they roll on somebody else, who rolls on somebody else, who rolls on somebody else, and the whole U.S. government could fall. You don't have one person in there that's a bad apple. You've got all these people playing a very crooked game of cards. You don't get into the game unless you're playing. You're going along with that agenda, even with some good people. Some good people have tried to do good, and they've probably had a very hard time doing so. So where does it end?
But don't you think the people of the United States deserve that? Deserve the honest truth? Deserve a better government if the government is crooked?
I think the world, not just the people of the United States, but the world deserves better and deserves that. And I think it has to be done in steps, and I think it should start. But I think President Trump has got a very large dilemma to work from, and I'm sure that the attack coming at him is every which way but loose. And one of the things I discussed with JFK Jr. was the fact that he could not trust the Secret Service. His father was betrayed by the Secret Service. He said he had to make that public to the American people. If he ran for office, he could not trust the Secret Service, and I was part of the explanation of that. And Donald Trump has taken upon himself to rely on a private security force on top of the Secret Service and carries a gun to protect himself, just like you said, so that he continue the process for the American public. And I think that's a very interesting point to have to make, that you have to protect yourself from your own people, from your own government, from the infiltration of corruption and bribery and PAC money and all the other problems that we're facing to get anything worthwhile done. We're so far behind in the world of technology, medicine, advances that have been held back, confiscated for national security purposes. We are being lied to, manipulated, and torn asunder, and it's time that this all stops.
Chris, do you still suffer from your experiences?
Every day. I have terrible recurring dreams. My wife has put up with the terrible things that I don't wish on anybody to have to deal with being my wife. It's a very difficult process, and I'm self-correcting all the time to try to be a functional person and to try to stay very positive and to affect a good life and a good course for my children. But once you see that evil and that negativity and it's put upon you, not after day, but year after year, it affects you terribly, and you have to do a lot of self-healing to adjust.
Chris, what type of responses have you had to your book so far?
It's been overwhelmingly positive. I mean, I never believed, or I never really thought that I would be so commended by individuals, not only in the government that have come forward and talked to me, but private citizens, good-hearted American people, and not only in the United States, but abroad in Europe, in Kenya, and Australia, and Canada. It's extremely touching, and I seem to have made an impact for their lives. And if I can do that, that has a thing where it can be exponential, and it may take some time. But if that's going to be a positive thing and this change that we need to do in this world, then I think I've done a good thing.
What are your final thoughts that you would like to share with the listening audience of the X Zone Nation around the world right now?
Well, my final thoughts is that we are inherently good people. I've traveled, and there's good people and good-hearted people everywhere you go. And the world has unfortunately been taken over by these extreme limited numbers of individuals that most of them, or a lot of them, are psychopaths and psychopathic. And they don't have the same ideas or feelings that we have, and they don't care about the masses of people, and they don't care about the benefit of the masses of people. They care about the benefit of themselves. And this is not in the interest of the world. It's not the interest of the rest of us that are out there. I think we need to take a very careful measure and shine a light on this and take the world back for what it is. It's a beautiful place to be. It's a gift. And everyone who's alive in the present moment it's a gift to be here. And we shouldn't have to be worried and concerned and scared to death for our children's futures and worried about the attack and the fear that is perpetuated by all of these systems that have been in place and are the pack dogs for these individuals that are psychopathic power individuals. We need to start shedding a light on this and saying, you know what? No, we're not going to accept this. I don't care how much money you have or how big an influence you have. We understand the game now, and this is going to stop.
I've got about a minute left, Chris. During one of the breaks, you were telling me that people, when they buy the book, a certain percentage goes to a nonprofit organization.
We have charities that mean something to us.
Right.
One of them is Marley's Mutt's Positive Change Program, which helps rescue dogs that have been abandoned and taken and are not loved, and they take those dogs and they put them with people that are doing time in prison. It helps the people feel love for the first time, and when they're coming back out into society, helps the dogs. The Ronald McDonald House that really helps
they do
families that have these premature children and they don't know where to go and they don't know what to do. Excellent organization. The PTSD Foundation of America for our young soldiers that are going abroad. They're being put in these little cubicles, and you push buttons and kill people with these drones, and they're 20-some-odd years old and watching these people die and all these casualties.
Chris, I hate to do this, Chris, but we've got to say so long for tonight. I want to thank you very much for coming on the show tonight. Continued success.
Thank you.
Keep us in the loop on what's going on, and I'd love to have you back on again in the future.
Thank you, sir. Very much appreciated.
You take care of yourself, my friend. And Exo Nation, if you'd like to find out more about our guest of this hour, visit his website, www.cmfulton.com. I'll be back on the other side of this news break. Whatever you do, don't go away. If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide. They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Ellie Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. SimulTV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. SimulTV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have SimulTV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.